What's going on, everybody? PWTorch Assistant Editor Zack Heydorn here for a new episode of Shooting the Breeze. Today, we shoot the breeze on AEW Revolution 2023. Pretty good show that I had some questions about throughout the build, and I think the questions were warranted. You know, even having watched the show, I think some of the question marks going in were still warranted, and we'll talk about that as we chat AEW Revolution here. But the show itself was an excellent show. I think top to bottom, the matches weren't all 5-star classics, and they weren't even all 4-star classics or 3-star classics for that matter. But I think collectively speaking, I think each match ended up serving its purpose on the show, and it was a balanced show in that regard. And I think we just haven't seen that from AEW yet. This is, I think, one of, if not the most balanced shows that they've had, where not everybody's getting 20 minutes to do their thing, and not everybody's getting the chance to do X spot and Y spot and what have you. It's the matches seem to be put together and organized in a way that benefited the show as a whole, and I think that's really important for wrestling shows, but especially for AEW, given the fact that they haven't always shown the propensity to do that, and it's smart to, and it's especially smart to when you have a 60-minute Iron Man match that's going to go on in the main event. So we'll get into all of that. This is a regular feature on the PWTorch YouTube channel, so if you're checking us out for the first time, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. That'd be a huge help to us. We are live almost every day of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, either previewing shows or reviewing shows or just kind of, chatting professional wrestling, PWTorch style. So hit the notification button as well as the subscribe button, so you know exactly when we are going to go live each and every single day. With that said, so yeah, let's talk more about the flow of the show here. There was a lot of blood. I guess that's not really talking flow, but there was a lot of blood on this show. Something that I think Tony Khan's going to want to look at again. You can't sustain this level of blood on a wrestling show and have it continue to matter week in, week out, month in, month out. It's not something that I'm against. Like, I think blood in wrestling makes sense in certain spots because, look, the people fighting out there. That's the goal, is to present a fight. And sometimes in fights there's blood. But for you to get the most out of it, for Tony Khan to get the most out of the blood spots, and for the talent to get the most out of the blood spots, they have to kind of keep it more to a minimum. And they certainly didn't go that route at AEW Revolution on Sunday night. We'll run through the card start to finish. They open with Chris Jericho versus Ricky Starks. Smart opener, and props to both guys kind of recognizing that they were the opener, recognizing that there was a long show left to go, and getting the most out of their match given those circumstances, and not just completely forgetting those circumstances. That's an important trait when you're a professional wrestler, is to know your spot on the card. And I think, Jericho and Starks are both, savvy veterans, especially Jericho. I think he knows, his place, depending on where he is on the show. And this match, to me, seemed to really, showcase that recognition. I thought it was crisp. It was fast-paced for what it was. It didn't overdo it in terms of like the crazy spots and the crazy bumps and the crazy, stunts and whatnot. Like, this was kind of your more, kind of tried and true opening wrestling match. Ricky Starks is over, and this victory, I think, really did what it needed to do in terms of positioning him as a star on the rise in AEW. And I think he elevated himself against MJF at the beginning of this year, or at the end of last year, beginning of this year. And I think this win, and kind of him winning the feud against Chris Jericho, keeps him elevated. I don't know that it sends him to a new level or like to any kind of new heights, but it keeps him at that level that he was going in. And I think that was kind of the idea here. Like, you don't want him to drop down. He's not going to be the world champion anytime soon, I don't think. So how do you keep him as high as possible without him falling down? And I think this win against Chris Jericho and this kind of 3-month arc with Chris Jericho, to me, that did a nice job of giving Ricky Starks what he needed coming out of that deal with MJF. Where he goes from here, that's a question. That is a question. You don't have, any other, I don't know, you don't have any other Chris Jerichos for him to work with, right? And he's a baby face. So, Adam Page is off the table, Adam Cole's off the table, Darby Allin's off the table. You're really kind of reaching. Wardlow, I think you could do like an open challenge with, but I don't think you get anything out of that because those are both baby faces that you're trying to make if you're Tony Khan. So, I don't know, where Jon Moxley goes. I think he could have something here with Ricky Starks potentially, but the story would kind of feel very similar to that of Hangman Page, where Moxley's trying to bring the next level of craziness out of Ricky Starks. So I think that's a little bit monotonous there. So who knows? We'll see where he goes. But on this night, this worked very well to kind of position him in a way that he needs to be positioned at this point. He's an overact. My one critique of this match is that you had Sammy Guevara run out there, interfere in the match, to absolutely no consequence from the referee. And I just was kind of shaking my head at that because, like, nobody forced you to have that stipulation of nobody gets involved, right? But then to have, like, Sammy Guevara, who is a part of the Jericho Appreciation Society, get involved and the referee essentially do nothing, that it just makes a bit of a mockery of the stips that you put on these matches. And so, for a wrestling company, if you're a wrestling company, you want to be like maintain your integrity with your stipulations because you want people to buy into them when you roll them out. You don't want them to say to themselves, oh, well, this is a stipulation, and they're trying to get me to take it as a big deal, but it's not because of XYZ, and we've seen it undone in XYZ places. Like, these stipulations matter, and if you're not going to, stick to them, what's the point of even having them? And I think this is a great example of that. It didn't hurt the match in the end. Not saying that. This is more of like a kind of a company situation thing. It's just don't have the stips if you're not going to stick with them. Plain and simple. But a good win for Ricky Starks and a good opener for the show. The next match that they had was what was the next? Christian Cage against Jungle Boy in the final burial. Good grief. That stipulation bothered me. Not bothered me. That's probably over dramatic. But, like, what's the point? What is the point of that stip? Why are we having a casket match or a buried alive match or whatever you want to call it for this? Like, that is so not in Jungle Boy's kind of DNA. I said this on our flagship episode of AEW Revolution, our AEW Revolution preview on the PWTorch Fireside Chat, the flagship edition last Thursday. Jungle Boy couldn't hit Christian Cage with a chair, but he's willing to bury Christian Cage alive. It just did not work. It just did not work. And I don't think it helped the match at all during the show itself on Sunday night. The match itself was effective. I think it put a nice bow on the Christian Cage Jungle Boy story that unfortunately kind of had a big break in the middle of it due to Christian Cage's injury. But this was a good way to put, the cherry on top of that program. You told the full story. You saw Jungle Boy get more aggressive. You saw him deliver the chair shot finally to Christian Cage. To me, that's enough. You didn't have to add in kind of the buried alive final burial stuff. Just too cute. too cute and unnecessary. But that said, it was a good finish to this program, and a program that I think top to bottom, generally speaking, has been pretty effective. It did have that break, of course, but I think when it was going on and when it was active on AWTV, they had more base hits than they did swings and misses. And so this was a good way to kind of wrap everything up. Christian Cage gave Jungle Boy a lot in this. He sold for him. He just amassed a ton of heat, which put sympathy on Jungle Boy throughout the match. He took that chair shot to the head, kind of, which sounded just absolutely vicious. So well done on their part. As far as Jungle Boy goes, obviously he needed this win. He needed this singles win. He needed to complete this feud with Christian Cage. I think when you design this program with Cage and Jungle Boy, you say to yourself, okay, we want to use this as a way to elevate Jungle Boy. I don't know that it did that, and it's not because the match was bad at all. It's just I think the break, kind of like the time they had to take away from this feud hurt some of its momentum. And I just don't know that for as good as Christian is, and he has been wonderful in this feud, the promo that he had on Wednesday night going into this, man. I mean, I still think that's one of the best pieces of live mic work that anybody in the company has done in the last 18 months. But he just is not viewed as a guy that, okay, you get past this guy and now you're on to the next level. And for whatever reason, that's just the perception that I get. And so a lot with what's going to happen with Jungle Boy matters on what's next. Is this something significant? Is it something that's bigger and better than Christian? We'll have to see, but I just don't know that it had like, okay, now Jungle Boy is, a semi main eventer type thing, or a guy who's going to be chasing the world championship type thing. I just don't know that he's there, even though this match was really, really good. Match number 3, the Elite versus the House of Black. You can predict exactly what I'm going to say about this match. Tremendous match, action-packed, great athleticism, tons of fast-paced stuff. The speed was off the charts, and absolutely no selling, no story, and no like real psychology. A little bit here and there, but this was your typical AEW trios style match, done to the 5-star level. Like, it was awesome from that perspective. I mean, the spots were unique. The striking and stuff that they did was crisp for the most part when they did it. The kicks were stiff, it seemed like. And so this checked all the boxes for what AEW typically presents in a match like this, with all the bells and whistles and all the extra stars. Like, this was that good. If you like this style of match, if you don't, of course, this match is going to drive you absolutely bonkers. Because of the fact that there wasn't a lot of selling, there wasn't any rules, there wasn't any structure. It was pretty much just a free for all. But that's what this is, and they did this to an A level, given that context and given those circumstances. House of Black winning this match was a surprise, and I think a good surprise at that, because I think these titles, while completely unnecessary within the AEW ecosystem due to the fact that company wants to have a tag team division that's robust, and the trios titles takes away from that. House of Black holding these belts, I think, does give them a shred more credibility than they had going in. The Elite holding them was kind of just, it felt like a novelty. They felt like props, when they were around the waist of the Elite, like, oh, we brought these in so you guys could have this, and they're not really doing anything for you. I think they do a little something for House of Black, and that's important. And plus, now the Elite can go on to bigger and better things, right? I mean, you have Kenny Omega, the guy, when he wants to be, can be a singles match machine, as he says. Take advantage of that. MJF's going to need babyface opponents. Omega works perfectly there. The Young Bucks can slide right back into the tag team division and make that what it should be. This is a win-win all around. Okay, match number 4. Saraya versus Ruby Soho versus Jamie Hayter for the AEW Women's World Championship. Jamie Hayter wins this. The match itself, I thought, was a weak women's championship match. It was a weak championship match in that it just didn't seem like Hayter was the focus, and it didn't seem like the title was the focus. Like, the focus of this, and you saw that by the end of the match, was continuing this AEW OG outsider story. And one that I just don't think people are all that invested in at this point. I mean, I just don't think there's a lot there, and like that the juice isn't worth the squeeze on this. And what is taking a back seat is the AEW Women's World Championship and Jamie Hayter. Like, that's in the background of this feud, and it shouldn't be that way. It really shouldn't be that way. Ruby Soho turning heel at the end of this match, I think, was a bit odd. She sided with the losers. Not sure why you'd want to do that, but we'll have to see. Like, there should be an explanation for that. And Jamie Hayter retains, and was the only call to make. It was the absolute only call to make. She's too over to take the belt off her at this point, but she needs to be fed good opponents. And, so Double or Nothing looms now, on pay-per-view. And, I don't know, are they trying for blood and guts? Is this what do they want to have a women's blood and guts match? Okay. If they do, that's usually, early May, middle of May. That'll, they can wrap that up before you go into the pay-per-view. And they need to have something for Jamie Hayter, something better to sink your teeth into from a championship level that puts the championship first. If they want that division to be anything. Otherwise, it's just more the same with her, and a title that is supposed to mean something by name but doesn't in practice. So, okay match, fine for what it was, but it was there to kind of serve the angle at the end, and that's about it. Match 5, Jon Moxley versus Hangman Adam Page, Texas Death Match. Oh man, this thing was absolutely insane. I mean, barbaric. I think it more than delivered on the hype of the Texas Deathmatch stipulation. There was blood, lots of it. There was bricks, there was chains, there's barbed wire, there's everything. But all that said, it didn't, to me, feel like a stunt show death match. Like, because the story was there here. Like, in this match, you saw Jon Moxley take Adam Page to deep waters, just like he said he was going to do. That matters. So the violence was there for sure. But I think in terms of kind of analyzing the match and, hey, when is it too much? Well, like this needed it. This needed to be that way, because it was all about Moxley taking Page there to that space, and Adam Page, in the end, overcoming, going there, and then winning. When you look at that story from that perspective, like, you kind of go, well, Page had to win this. And I think he almost did. If Page talks such a big game about beating Jon Moxley and beating him at his own style, and then loses, I mean, man, it's the wheels continue to fall off for his character. He's got something now. He's got something that he can lean on. Not only does he have the win, but he has like a raw presentation. He's got a little more edge to him. He's got a little more like violence and danger behind his name. And that's important. I think he's going to move on, and he's going to be in that world title picture for most of the summer. So thumbs up. He got a new presentation last night too, new entrance theme, new kind of entrance presentation with the graphics and whatnot on the big screen. So this was kind of a Adam Page reborn in a certain way. And I thought it was really effective, and the win helped. Jon Moxley, I mean, the guy is insane out there. So violent, and the blood is just, it's wild. I think you might want to like keep him away for a bit. This might be a good time for that vacation of his. Keep him away and have him come back with respect to Page, and then you move on with him as a babyface. I think, turning Jon Moxley heel is something that I've seen floated around coming out of this match. And I think Todd Martin talked about it on the post-pay-per-view roundtable for PWTorch VIP members. And you can go VIP right now, pwtorch.com/go VIP. But he talked about like, hey, you could see this going like a Jon Moxley heel route. And I can too. It's just, I don't think they get there in the end. I don't think they can complete the journey of Moxley like being heel. Like I think just fans just like him too much. They know his story too much. They have a relationship with him for years now, almost 10 years, more than 10 years. And so it's just going to be really hard to get that negative reaction from him at this point. So what do you do? I don't know. He's faced almost everybody that there is to face in AEW, like top names. So it'll be very interesting to see where he goes. But at this event, on this show, it was his time to kind of do the favors, and he did. Okay, match number 6, we had Wardlow versus Samoa Joe. Just kind of was what it was, you know. A really good come down match. And again, an example of what I talked about at the beginning of the show, of matches on the show serving its purpose. This didn't need to be a 30-minute thriller. It shouldn't have been, you know, coming out of the Texas Death Match, right? This had to be what it was, kind of a quick match, showcase Wardlow a little bit, showcase Samoa Joe a little bit. Wardlow wins the TNT Championship, submits Samoa Joe. Not many people do that. So a big moment for Wardlow, but it was, you know, it was what it was as far as, you know, the match goes. So not a lot to say here, except, you know, I think Wardlow makes a good champion. Real interested to see how they book Wardlow versus Powerhouse Hobbs on Wednesday on Dynamite. Hobbs is the first challenger, so we'll see on that. But this match was what it needed to be, plain and simple, and it delivered in that role. Same thing with match number 7. Fatal 4-way for the AEW World Tag Team Championships. The Guns defending against the Acclaimed, defending against Jay Lethal and Jeff Jarrett, and Danhausen and Orange Cassidy. This was madness. This was comedy madness, but served the purpose on the show. You know, it didn't try to be a death match. It didn't try to be like a 5-star match classic. This just kind of helped. If the Joe match was the kind of the come down match, this tag match was kind of like, all right, let's try to ramp things up again before that main event. We'll do it with some comedy. We'll do it with some action. We'll do it with lots of tags and lots of people. To that end, it worked. And then you got the FTR surprise, which also kind of popped the crowd. And so if you weren't awake with all the comedy, you were then with FTR walking out. So I think it served its purpose. The match itself was not great. It just kind of was there, and it had its spots, like Danhausen cursing people and, you know, and everything in between, right? But I think it served its purpose. The Guns winning, no surprise there. You know, the story is the Acclaim getting the belts back. So even with FTR, I think that's the story. That's where this ends. Acclaim getting those titles back. That's not going to happen and we talked about this last week on the preview show too. That's not going to happen on in a multi-person match. Like, you don't get that type of definitive win in a match like that. Period. You just don't. So the Guns had to retain here, and they did. And then finally the main event, and what a match it was. One of the I'm pretty confident in saying this is the best Iron Man match ever. And it was just so good. It was emotional. I thought, look, you're going 60 minutes, and so you're going to have like the slower moments at the beginning of the match. I thought even those were compelling. They were slow, yes, but they were compelling, and they helped kind of drive the narrative of the story that they were going to tell later on. I really like that. Iron Man matches, they come with a certain level of contrivance to them. Like, there are just some things that you have to do in an Iron Man match in order to keep things compelling. It's just par for the course of what comes with booking these matches. And so I think with that reality, the match itself, and because it was wrestled in such a personal way and in such an intense way, and it had like drama behind it and it had intrigue behind it, those contrivances didn't like hurt the match. They just kind of they went along and folded into the story. And yeah, you could look at them and go, really? Like the oxygen tank is just there. Nobody's ever given oxygen to anybody in the middle of the ring in AEW, but this time they do, and they needed to do that because they needed the oxygen tank out there to hit Danielson with. Okay. I think in a worse match, I think in a match where, you have people rolling their eyes more so than they are like actively engaged, that spot doesn't come off well. But it is a matter of that context. And Danielson and MJF had everybody locked in place. So because they did, the restart mattered more, the finish mattered more, and the contrivances mattered way, way less. We know Bryan Danielson can have these kinds of matches. We've seen it before. He's one of the best wrestlers in the world, one of the best ever. This night was about MJF, and not just from a storyline perspective, but the meta perspective too. The guy can wrestle, and we know that, or we should know that already. But man, he showed it here, and it wasn't just the in ring. It wasn't just like the moves and the spots and the the punches and what have you. But I want to go back and watch that match just to watch MJF's facial expressions and his body language, the way he sold, the way he taunted the crowd, the way he taunted Danielson, his confidence, the swagger, the presence that he had just really jumped off the page or jumped out of the screen. And Danielson was really good foil for him and carried himself in a similar manner that made everything click. So I liked what they did, and the finish was classic MJF. He has to finish his matches that way at this point. He's a cheater. He's a heel. He's a bad guy who thinks he's the greatest. That's part of the gimmick, and so if he goes over clean, I think like he's almost a babyface at that point in time. What kind of roots that heel gimmick is that he's going to cheat to win. And then he's going to talk about how great he is afterwards. Yes, there's a lot more depth to it than that. I'm not saying that, but the way he finishes matches is synonymous with that kind of arrogant character. So to all of a sudden see him not finishing matches that way, I think would be jarring in a bad way. This really worked and was it was the best AEW World Championship match, I think, in the company's history. 5 stars is what I gave it in the Torch newsletter, which will be coming out later this week. So you can get my full match ratings right on there. That's it. Shooting the breeze. AEW Revolution 2023. Again, subscribe, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification button too, so you know when we are live every single day. I'm PWTorch Assistant Editor Zack Heydorn. Thank you so much. We'll talk soon.